For unique perspectives in Christian truth and one-of-a-kind Bible studies, please visit our website, truthhuntershow.com. Help us get around big tech censorship on YouTube, Facebook, and others by subscribing to our website. You can do so by entering your email address right here and click subscribe. Another option is click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll get a pop-up where you can enter your email address here and click subscribe. To support the work of the Truth Hunters, simply scroll down the page and you'll see ways that you can contribute by PayPal, Patreon, and Venmo. Thank you very much.
The Smithsonian has collected thousands of giant skeletons and tucked them away from the public. The Egyptian government is notorious for defending their official story of the Giza pyramids. And the Chinese government has been burying several ancient pyramids beneath trees. Hiding our mysterious past and anything that challenges the official historical narrative has been going on for well over a century. My Lunch Break on YouTube has been showing how the construction of several dams have knowingly submerged numerous ancient ruins and archaeological sites around the world. The Ilisu Dam in Turkey submerged the ancient city of Hasankeyf, which dates back 12,000 years and was a cultural crossroads of Mesopotamian, Byzantine, and Ottoman civilizations. This submersion also displaced 80,000 people when it buried their homes beneath the water. The Birasik Dam in Turkey submerged Zeugma, a major Roman and Hellenistic trading center, including several unexcavated areas. The Kaban Dam in Turkey submerged Norsun Tepe, a 40-level Bronze Age settlement that was continuously occupied from 5000 to 1000 BCE. It was barely explored before being submerged in water. In Egypt, the Aswan dams submerged over 1,000 sites, the Temple of Isis, the city of Aniba, and several other ancient monuments are now beneath over 2,000 square miles of water in Lake Nasser, one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. The face of the Abu Simbel temple was cut into pieces and reassembled 65 meters above its original footprint, while the actual temple was submerged beneath the waters. Philae, a sacred site known as the Pearl of Egypt, dating back to 300 BCE, was submerged, as were several other ancient temples, villages, and cemeteries. Approximately 50,000 Nubians were displaced when their homes were buried beneath the water. In China, the Three Gorges Dam and the Qiandao Lake Dam have submerged over 1,300 sites, including a 1,400-year-old city from the Han Dynasty. Well-preserved temples, roads, and houses were buried beneath 40 meters of water. In India, the Panchet Dam submerged the village of Telkupi and its surrounding area, including a number of temples. These temples were part of a group of ancient structures that had been located in the village for centuries, with some dating back to the 1st century AD. The Belo Monte Dam in Brazil submerged several ancient and unexcavated archaeological sites. The Mosul Dam in Iraq submerged ancient Sumerian and Babylonian ruins. And the Mornos Dam in Greece submerged the ancient city of Kallio, with temples and fortifications from the classical Greek period. These submerged sites are controlled not just by local governments, but by the United States and the United Nations. An archaeologist from Boston University, Ricardo J. Alia, explained how UNESCO and the United States have kept archaeologists from exploring these submerged sites by conjuring the law of the sea, underwater cultural heritage, and exclusive economic zones. Laws have been created that allow for salvage and theft, but restrict archaeologist access. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is your host, Doug Diamond here. Yet again, the Diamond Report Live, and it is May 11th, 2025, 10:06 p.m. Happy Mother's Day to you out there. You know who you are, and thank you for being here tonight, for spending some of your Mother's Day holiday with me. I certainly appreciate that. We had our family get-together a little while ago, and, earlier today, and everything was good. So it was nice to see everybody, and hope you guys had a really good family day as well. Got some people talking about that in chat. So happy Mom's Day to all the moms out there. Yes, so Truth Hunters, we started the broadcast with that. That is the ongoing promo that I cut a few days back, I guess, and we're trying to get folks to sign up on Truth Hunters. I know many of you guys who are here every week know that, but it doesn't hurt for me to reiterate, because many people are just hearing this show for the very first time, and they may not know about the Truth Hunters, so I'm here to tell you. It's a really great site, and my friend Lindley Oz and I have been putting that site together. I don't know, I guess it's been a few months, but we haven't really been adding new content together necessarily on that. She had been posting things. So it's a really good site to catch up on her content, and I'm posting a few things on there, mostly videos. So just know that you can subscribe for free, and that was what the intro video was about there. So yes, we'd appreciate your help there. It's totally free. Truth Hunters website, and it is truthhuntersshow.com. truthhuntersshow.com. So anyway, have a look at that, and then let's take a look at the news. We've got several things to talk about tonight. I'm doing things slightly different tonight than normal, and I'm just checking my my CPU usage here, and it's running like about 40%, which is a little higher than normal. So if I have occasional dropouts and glitches, that's probably why. Just know that it's not me dropping out and glitching, it's the computer. So anyway, I just wanted to be aware of that. Wanted to make you guys aware of that as well. So yeah, it's kind of maxing out almost. It's running about 40%, so that's pretty high actually for a live stream. Lots going on with this computer. It's not like I have 300 tabs open at the same time or anything. So, but I'm, like I said, doing things a little differently. So it might it'll probably look the same to you guys actually. So anyway, let's take a look at the first website I have pulled up here, which of course is Hal's website. There is some covert intel here. Let's click through on this. We can't actually read it because I'm not logged in. Yeah. I'm not logged in on Hal's site and can't give away his information anyway. That's not up to me. But just know the headline says, Covert intel, Saturday, India bombed a nuke storage facility in Pakistan. So that is one of Hal's headlines here. And if you are a subscriber, you can read that information. He's posted that just earlier today. So have a look at that if you guys want to take time to, but only if you're a subscriber, because you saw what the page looked like. It was not the actual report unless you're a subscriber. So, but Hal's doing really good work. I talk about his show every week, and he doesn't pay me to do that. I just like what his show is all about, and his stance on pretty much everything for the most part. I do disagree on a few things, but not too many. And I wanted to mention this one because at first, I think he was one of the first guys on this whole cocaine gate thing that's just happened. I don't know if you guys know about this, but it really just transpired today for the most part, as far as what I can tell. And but Alex and team on InfoWars and others have picked up on this. They're calling it Cocaine Gate. And it's pretty much what you might imagine it is. It says Macron, Starmer, Mertz, and a bag of cocaine, ? Well, they're on a train. They're in a train car. Let me just read through this short little description here of what happened, and then we do have a video here. And I think these people were busted. See what you guys think. Yesterday, European leaders Macron from France, Starmer from the UK, and Mertz from Germany sat down at a table that appeared to have a bag of Coke and a Coke sniffing spoon, I didn't know there was such a thing, on it. Macron secreted the bag off the table away from the cameras, and then Mertz grabbed and hid the seeming cocaine-sniffing spoon. During the train ride from Kiev to Warsaw, journalists unexpectedly entered the carriage of Macron, Mertz, Macron and Mertz, both of them were seen hastily trying to conceal suspicious items resembling tools commonly used for coke. And I don't mean Coca-Cola, the drink. You know what I mean. We begin with the still images below, an apparent bag of coke and the sniffing spoon. So here is the photos that were taken, and no, they don't look high at all. No, not at all. But yeah, they're greeting the press here in their train car. They're on a train, and you see a couple of little items there on the table. It says close-up of the spoon with an inserted image of one that can be bought online. So this is apparently what one of those spoons looked like. I guess this is the end here that you use. I don't know, and I'm glad I don't know, and you guys are probably glad that I don't know. But anyway, there's the actual and retail inserted side by side, so they look pretty darn similar, don't they? Lastly, the actual video of these men sitting down at the table, wherein these items are clearly visible, and then showing Macron quickly grab and conceal the bag, and Mertz grab and conceal the spoon. So my point here is that, obviously, this is what I think happened. I think what he's reporting is exactly right. And if they were indeed doing that, and then these reporters kind of walk in, and they've already kind of, done their lines or whatever they do, they're probably going to forget that those little items are left on the table. So let's listen to the short little video here, and take a watch here. Make sure you pay attention to Mertz over here on the right screen right here.
Avec le photo, on a fait ça, tu regardes. With the other way to drink. Yeah. Super. Yeah. Tout le monde va bien. Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Merci.
They don't look guilty or anything, do they? No, not at all. If the bag wasn't full of illegal drugs, why did Macron snatch it up and then try to put it discreetly in his pocket? If the spoon wasn't for sniffing coke, why did Mertz grab it and conceal it in his hands? A lot of people think these three men were sitting down to get high on cocaine or maybe resume it. I would say probably that. These men were at a meeting for the Coalition of the Willing, and it sounds like that's exactly what they were, doesn't it? About the Ukraine and Russia war. There they are, different table and pre-coke, I guess. During those meetings, Zelensky was apparently also high on drugs, and he put his pants on backwards. And if you don't believe me, notice his fly is open on his rear. Yeah, so busted. Absolutely busted. Unless that was done deliberately to provide easy access for you-know-what. Well, it's probably the first thing, though, I'm guessing. These men keep making proposals to end the war in Russia that repeatedly has been rejected by Russia. Maybe the reason these men make proposals that are repeatedly rejected is because their brains are tainted by drug use. Well, that's probably a little part of it, I would think. Men are dying on battlefields for these guys, and they don't want you to see the above. Maybe they got it from or for Zelensky. Yeah, maybe they're having a little pre-party before Z gets with them. Here's a video of Zelensky displaying all the signs of cocaine use, which I don't know if you guys have seen this. I'll leave it muted, but he's doing constant sniffing. And apparently that's one of the telltale signs here, which many of you guys may already know about. Look at his eyes. There's some of the sniffing. It's starting to look to some people like there's no hope for peace unless Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela et al. Embargo cocaine from Europe. Maybe once the drugs are out of people's brains over there, then peace can be achieved. Here's the original news video from which the video above came. So this is the full video here, which is it's actually the same clip, I think, but it's an embedded tweet. So you get the idea here. So they're high on coke. That's pretty much what's going on. And yes, he's got his pants on backwards. So yeah. Just wanted you guys to be aware of that. That is something that's being reported. And what's funny is if you ask Grok about it, Grok will tell you that no, it's a conspiracy theory, that of course none of these guys were actually doing drugs, and it's all a coincidence. So I saw a printout of a response from Grok, and of course it's totally denying it, which means, of course, it's real. But because it's getting its sources directly from like Reuters and the AP, BBC and so forth. So more of the same, isn't it? Macron, Starmer, Mertz, and the bag of Coke. All right, let's take a look at some of these other articles here. G. Edward Griffin's Need to Know .news. So, Royal Family Advisor exposes Prince Andrew's sexual relations with minors and ties to Epstein. So this was one of the big stories this week, which many of you guys may already know about. John Bryan, an American businessman and advisor to the British royal family, was covertly filmed saying that he was angry that Prince Andrew, which is King Charles's brother, lied to him about his close ties to Epstein and his sexual misconduct with minors. Bryan dated Sarah Ferguson after she was separated and then divorced from Prince Andrew. Virginia Giuffre accused Prince Andrew of having sex with her 3 times when she was a minor. She died on April 25th under curious and very suspicious circumstances, and her death was declared a suicide. So here's the embedded video here. This was another O'Keefe Media Group busted type situation as well. So it's this guy, John Bryan. Revelation's been caught on hidden camera by O'Keefe Media Group, OMG. American businessman and longtime royal insider, John Bryan. And he clearly was that. You can see in some of the clips where he was, front and center with the British royal crown, basically. So anyway, he's come forward with damning claims about Prince Andrew's personal relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So he was a trusted advisor to the Duke of York, also alleged that Prince Andrew lied to him about his involvement in sexual misconduct with minors. So we're hitting all cylinders tonight, aren't we? We're talking about sexual misconduct with minors and trafficking and cocaine use. So yeah, just know that that's not my choice. I'm just reporting the news here. So again, thank you guys for being here and putting up with all of this craziness. All right, so bill banning criticism of Israel was removed from the schedule. We talked about this last week. This was something that I was very concerned about, as you might imagine, and it's been removed from the schedule, but it is likely to be repackaged because, don't forget, Israel's in charge here, so they will be coming back to make sure this gets passed, some version of it. So MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, said that she would vote no on the IGO Anti-Boycott Act. That's what it was called. That proposed imprisoning Americans for up to 20 years and imposing fines of $1 million just for criticizing Israel by participating in boycotts that are sponsored by international government organizations, IGOs, such as the UN or the EU. MTG wrote, "It is my job to defend Americans' rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose, without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them." So she gets it. Representative Thomas Massey warned that the bill is likely to be repackaged and tucked into another piece of legislation at a later date. Several people pointed out that the author of H.R. 867, which is what the first one was, Mike Lawler, is a GOP congressman who has received massive amounts of cash from AIPAC. So just know that it is currently off the table, but they will be bringing it back. And Thomas Massey is saying that it will be repackaged and tucked into another piece of legislation at a later date. So it is not over. But at least round one here is, the good guys have won here. And that would be not Israel. And yes, I do mean exactly what I say. Because, the people over there in that little country, the regular people are really good folks. Many of them aren't, but you'd have that in any country, right? And I know just a handful of people that live over there, good folks. And it's the government, though, that is the main issue. And they're the ones running around, the people in charge of the government, saying that they are God's chosen people, when in fact they've simply taken the name Israel and applied it to that little sliver of land. And propagandize the entire world into believing they are the chosen people and that we have to do whatever they say, because they're saying that if you don't bless them, then God will curse you. That is the way it works. And that is coming out that it's a total lie, and it always has been. It's a Rothschilds founded country, and it was never meant to be God's chosen people in that land. God's chosen people are you and I and the rest of the people out there listening to this show and many, many other shows and all across the world who claim Jesus Christ as their Savior. That is Israel, not those people over there in the little sliver of land that we were just talking about. That's my little foray here into a little bit of truth. I'm sure many of you guys know that. Trump fires National Security Advisor Mike Waltz after plotting with Israel. So I mentioned this last week, not so much this story, but there is a rift here between Trump and Netanyahu, and I've got more evidence on that this week. And I mentioned last week that that was what I was hearing. Reports indicate that Mike Waltz, who is Trump's national security advisor, was fired due to 2 signal message scandals for upsetting Trump after meeting with Netanyahu in early February. During the meeting, Waltz appeared to share the Israeli leader's conviction that the time was ripe to strike Iran. The view by some in the administration was that Waltz was trying to tip the scales in favor of military action and was operating hand in glove with the Israelis. A Trump advisor said, "You can't do that. You work for the president of your country, not a president of another country." So good for him. So yeah, they fired him. They did fire Waltz, but they're just moving him to a new position, actually. It may say that in here. He's been moved over to ambassador to the UN, which would be a pretty much somewhat forgettable position, if you ask me. But anyway, yeah, he's not making Trump and company happy by kind of going around what Trump wants. So the next article I've got pulled up is the India-Pakistan war. It says India attacked Pakistan as full-blown war threatens to break out between the 2 nuclear powers. So I've got several things pulled up on this whole thing. A couple things that you may not have seen that I really wanted to touch on tonight and let you guys know about. It's not really part of this particular article, but it is something to keep an eye on for sure. Both India and Pakistan have nuclear weapons. Since gaining independence from British rule in 1947, both countries have controlled parts of Kashmir, with China controlling another part of it, but continue to claim it in full. India released a statement declaring that Indian armed forces launched Operation Sindoor, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan, and Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. India's assault came after the recent Falgam terrorist attack on April 22nd, in which 25, I think it was 26, Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were murdered, so 26 total. Pakistan has not taken responsibility for supporting the terrorist attack, and they vowed to retaliate against India's latest attack. So that's just a little bit of the background. We covered this a little bit last week as far as what was the trigger here on this whole thing. You know, and some people have suggested that maybe that was a false flag. Perhaps it didn't happen, but I tend to think that probably did happen, and that these people are pretty trigger happy and ready to go to war. They've hated each other for a really, really long time. So anyway, we're going to look at this a little bit closer on another tab I've got down the line here, and actually several others that I thought were really interesting. So we'll come back to that. Minnesota, hundreds of millions paid for autism care in Somali County may be a scam. The Minnesota legislature created an early and intensive developmental and behavioral intervention treatment program in 2017 for intensive treatment to children on the autism spectrum. I wonder how they got there. Since this time, there has been a remarkable boom in autistic cases in Minnesota. I would say also a boom in business, especially among Somali children. The providers of this intensive autism treatment have increased 700% in just the past 5 years, from 41 in 2018 to 328 in 2023. Medicaid funds have also increased dramatically, with a 3,000% increase in Medicaid funds paid to these autism providers, rising from $6 million to nearly $200 million in 2023 and $250 million in 2024. Abel Child blamed the problem of corruption on lack of government spending oversight by Jody Harpstead of the Commissioner Department of Human Services in Minnesota, Willie Jett, Commissioner of Education, and Dr. Nathan Chamalo, the Director of Medicaid and Minnesota Care. So yes, the scam is continuing, I guess. This is a monetary scam, but of course the injury is real. That would be autism. And mostly I bring that up just to say, I wonder why so many kids have autism these days. Any idea? I think it's from Sneeze Guy, because it barely existed before Sneeze Guy came out. Truth. All right. Humanoid robot attacks humans after terrifying error. So we've got, I feel like I'm reporting on more and more robot type things lately. I think there was one or two of those stories last week. And yet this is another one. Humanoid robot attacks humans after terrifying error. A video clip that went viral on social media shows a Chinese humanoid robot, the Unitree H1, that was attached to a crane to hold it upright, began to malfunction and thrash against the technician. The Unitree H1 robot sells for $90,000. In February, one of the robots appeared to charge a crowd. So that was a different thing. So let's take a look at this short little clip. Robots gone berserker. How about that? It's just flailing its arms and attacking. It's a good thing it wasn't holding a weapon, isn't it? Yeah, it's just, I don't even know if it's actually attacking a human or if it's just flailing its arms. Can't really tell. Yeah, out of control. Recent social media clips showed a robot violently malfunctioning and nearly striking lab technicians. Footage of the incident began circulating last Thursday. Malfunctioning robot looked like it was throwing a tantrum, began furiously flailing its arms with brute strength of a machine. So, very strange. That's what's going on in the robot world. And then, speaking of which, here's another robot story. Amazon's new high-tech robots target huge numbers of warehouse workers. Amazon declares a fundamental leap in robot technology with a human-like sense of touch. Vulcan joined 750,000 robots at Amazon to replace even more employees. So Amazon's going fully mechanized here. Amazon's fulfillment business would not be possible without robots, but this underscores the loss of jobs across all sectors of the industry. Technocrats imagine the whole of society being run like an Amazon warehouse. So that's an important little point to make, I think. So there's some examples here in this picture, but yeah, that's another thing to watch for. That's just, factories and distribution centers and all kinds of things, replacing actual human workers with robots and AI, obviously, as well. Are technocrats at war with the Federal Reserve and CBDCs? And then this writer here in this article says, we need to have this discussion. Do technocrats think they can take the entire central bank system, including the Bank for International Settlements? Or did they simply run out of patience waiting for the Federal Reserve to launch CBDCs in the first place? Indeed, digital currency is essential for technology's coup d'etat, but the Fed couldn't deliver, so it got sidelined for a timeout. So yeah, we'll see. And we will see what Trump does about that. Obviously, he's kind of on to trying to get them to lower interest rates and stuff as well. And I don't know. I mean, it's possible that this Fed could institute some sort of CBDCs. They're basically independent of our government, right? And they're supposedly reporting to the U.S. government, but that's not true. They have their own systems in place. They don't report to anybody. They don't answer to anyone, meaning the Fed. So anyway, that was the third article on technocracy.news. And I've got several pulled up from Slay News, which is a pretty good site. America is dangerously close to rolling blackouts and grid failure, like we just saw in Spain. Trump's Interior Secretary warns. So that's not good, is it? Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary for Trump, is warning that the U.S. is at risk of major widespread blackouts similar to the power cuts that recently shut down most of Spain and Portugal. In a new interview, Burgum said that the blackouts in Europe were caused by over-subsidizing intermittent renewable energy sources. We touched on that last week. However, he warns that America is now dangerously close to suffering from similar rolling blackouts and grid failure. Speaking to David Freeberg on the All In podcast, Burgum admitted that the AI arms race with China keeps him awake at night due to the amount of electricity that the technology requires. We just saw in Spain that they were celebrating on April 12th of this past month that they had shut down their last coal plant, Burgum explains. A week after that, they were celebrating the fact that they had their first day of 100% renewables on their system, right? So they shut down the last coal plant. Now they're 100% on renewables at this point. And then the next week, there was a global news story because people were trapped in subways. All airline flights were canceled. Hospitals were panicking with the lack of power because they had to have rolling blackouts and they had grid failure. Burgum attributed the devastating blackouts to a fundamental flaw in relying solely on intermittent power sources like solar and wind. Yes, it just defies physics. Well, that it does, doesn't it? The non-renewables is that's the ones that are causing issues here. So, yeah, anytime you go 100% green like that, what they're calling 100% green, which of course isn't, it's not going to work. And then this was kind of a sad story. If you guys watched any television in the 1980s at all, then you would know this person. Veteran game show host Wink Martindale, dead at 91. So Wink has made the jump to hyperspace, as we say. Wink Martindale, the veteran TV and radio host, has died. His family has announced. Martindale, who is best known for hosting Tic-Tac-Dough and Gambit, was 91 when he passed away. I didn't realize he was from Jackson, Tennessee, which isn't, a couple hours from where I am. Anyway, he says that Martindale was credited with setting up Elvis Presley's first interview. The interview came together after Memphis radio station WHBQ played Presley's debut recording, That's All Right Mama, on July 10th, 1954. Wink Martindale, which he was going by Conrad Martindale at the time, Martindale broke into television at WHBQ TV in Memphis. At the station, he hosted Mars Patrol, a science fiction themed show for kids. He also hosted Teenage Dance Party, where he interviewed Elvis on June 16th, 1956. His first game show was NBC's What's This Song, followed by NBC's Words and Music, and his most famous show, Tic-Tac-Dough. So anyway, it says Martindale also had success as a recording artist, selling more than 1 million copies of the spoken word narrative song Deck of Cards in 1959. I had no idea. So anyway, kind of sad. Wink has passed. So I just wanted to tell you guys that if you guys follow Tic-Tac-Dough and some of the other things he'd been in over the years. All right, and then Liberty Beacon. Trump cuts ties with Netanyahu, may recognize Palestine in the Gulf U.S. Summit. Netanyahu becomes persona non grata as Palestine state may be recognized. And then they're calling this episode 17 of Is Trump a Zionist? ? That's the name of the series that they have going here on the Liberty Beacon, if you guys want to take a look. But, many of you all have your minds made up about Trump, and there's no changing it. And I'm not here to necessarily do that. I'm just saying that there is evidence. Otherwise, if you don't want to hear it, that's not my problem. Okay, ER editor, we believe this is all a pretext. Netanyahu is manipulative, but at least it begins to put to rest the nonsense about Trump being a Zionist. This isn't me talking. This is the writer of this article. It says, existentially impossible, and Trump may recognize Palestine unilaterally, say the media. Let's recall Mike Waltz recently getting the boot because he took a Zionist line toward Iran. Hopefully we can recognize the irony and bad acting in this scene. The real Netanyahu is long gone. This version's hair is a strange color. See an embedded photo below for a clearer view. So this is saying it's not even the same guy, which I have no idea. I would think that it is. He's pretty evil, right? So, people come back to the whole deal where he's holding his chair out and pushing his chair in like he's his lapdog or something. Netanyahu is the overlord and Trump is his lapdog. Well, guess what? Anytime that any of these leaders go into this room and sit down to sign something, the president always holds the chair out for the person as they sit down. It happens all the time. I just saw another video of him doing the same exact thing for Modi from India the other day. So, and it may be embedded here. I don't know. Anyway, that is an article here on the Liberty Beacon. Says Trump cuts ties with Netanyahu over manipulation concerns. So they're, for whatever reason, at least the article writer here is saying that he's not going to bend over backwards for Netanyahu here. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I'll leave my opinion open on that. But to me, the evidence kind of proves otherwise. But again, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Doge deactivates 500,000 federal credit cards. So there he is, clipping the cards up. The little Doge doggy. The Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, said on May 7th that it has canceled about 500,000 unneeded credit cards used by the federal agencies. In a post on social media platform X, Doge wrote that over the past 10 weeks, its program to audit unused or unneeded credit cards has been expanded to 32 federal agencies. Musk said that the 500,000 agency credit cards were deactivated in that period of time out of roughly 4.6 million active cards. So they only deactivated 500,000 out of 4.6 million. There's still more work to do, he says. So, it's a start. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. Liberty Beacon article, and then one more from there. This kind of gets into the whole Pope thing. We have a new Pope, as you undoubtedly know, but I just thought I would pull up a few of the articles that I found about him because many people don't really know too much about him. So here's a few of the things I found. This is another Liberty Beacon article, and this particular one is saying has he covered up child sex abuse allegations in Chicago and Peru? An election or an outing? ? Robert Prevost, Pope Leo XIV, says Pope Leo XIV looked the other way when confronted with child sex abuse allegations. And then it says from the editor, ouch, how many hours did it take for the new Pope Prevost's pass to catch up with him? Below we have the latest from Daily Mail. So they're pulling this from Daily Mail, which I would tend to think that, even though the Daily Mail can't necessarily always be trusted, that they're not the only ones out there saying that about this guy. American Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost announced as new Pope. So yeah, Robert, the Pope. So we can call him Bob Pope, can't we? It seems to me that that's pretty logical. Call him Bob Pope. Well, speaking of Bob Pope, there was a book called Pope Bob. Looking to see, this was in 2010, when the first American-born Pope, Leo XIV, now keep in mind, this is a screenshot from Amazon, this Kindle book called Pope Bob, from a book that was written in 2010, when the first American-born Pope, Leo XIV, even has the number right, and the name, wakes up on Seattle's Skid Road and discovers that during his most recent alcoholic blackout, the papal plane has been lost over the Atlantic and the world assumes he's dead. Author Bill Dodds uses a light, and at times surprisingly lighthearted, touch to tell the story of vices and vocations, promises and possibilities, fears and faith. He has created a cast of delightful, believable, and unforgettable characters. Again, 2010, it's about the first American-born Pope, Leo XIV, called Pope Bob. Is that a coincidence? Maybe. I just thought that was very unusual. He wasn't from Chicago, though, or at least he didn't end up, I guess he ended up in the story here in Seattle. So, very weird. I just thought that was something worth mentioning. And this guy's probably selling a lot of books now at this point, I would think. Bill Dodds. So, yeah, you can look him up on Amazon and see what you find. And then this one as well, InfoWars, new Pope bashed MAGA, Trump immigration policies, and venerated George Floyd in past tweets. the new pope has retweeted posts attacking Trump's border wall and immigration policies while backing liberal causes like gun control and George Floyd activism. Well, he is from Chicago, after all, right? There's that. Past social media posts made by newly elected Pope Leo XIV shows he's leaned left on social issues and has been critical of the Trump administration's immigration policies, prompted concerns he's a compromised globalist pontiff. So coming back to Bob Pope here, he is not on the short list of the people that I have mentioned over the last week or two of who it was looking like could be chosen, and that came directly from Leo Zagami's website, where he talked about it on there and his various books and stuff. So the person was wrong. However, the personality of the person and the fact that they are a globalist was not wrong. So that aspect of it, I feel like Leo Zagami, and then therefore, because I was repeating his information, got it right, even though it was a different person. So it will be kind of interesting to see where it goes. Leo Zagami says this pope is worse than Francis, and he was chosen to flood the U.S. with third worlders. So he's not going to do that whilst Trump is in there, because that, the border crossings are down to like 0% now. But this guy's young enough, he could feasibly be pope for a long time. And I would just, further reiterate that this guy, if he's truly that evil, which, we'll probably find out as we go here, perhaps he will be the biblical false prophet. Don't know. Something to keep an eye on. I'll be interested to see how much he is working, how closely he's working with King Charles. So there could be the biblical false prophet along with the biblical antichrist coming up. I do believe we're in the end times. Don't you all? Here's what Leo says. The first American pope protected pedophiles and attacked Trump's immigration policies. So there's his book, which I'm not promoting, but of course he is. Pope Leo XIV, born Robert Francis Prevost, September 14th, 1955, is now the first American head of the Catholic Church and the first American sovereign of the Vatican City State, which of course is its own country, right? Many people in the U.S. will be deceived in thinking that this is a good thing. Please read this article, and you will realize that is not the case. So we're not going to read this whole article. I've kind of summed it up here for you, but there are further details here, obviously, in this article as well as in this book by Leo Zagami, Confessions of an Illuminati. So, haven't read the book, but I can vouch for his character, and Leo's been a guest on Lost Church Radio at least one time, way back when, which was a show that I was producing for years, and he's a good guy. I think he definitely knows his stuff. Yeah, and Kathy's saying, Leo Z would know. I totally agree. I think that he's got his finger on the pulse of exactly what's happening in the Catholic Church. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that is all unfolding. Now, here's the other wacky thing that I found about the Pope. I was showing you the Pope Bob book right here, the screenshot. Well, check this out. So there's this. Let me see if I can read this synopsis. Let me find where that is. I think I have it on a different tab, but I'll come back to it here. Now, this is the synopsis here. This is real. A sci-fi. This is different. This is not the Pope Bob book. A sci-fi short story that was published 20 years ago featured a fictional pope named Leo XIV, exactly the name of the new pope. In the story, a UFO arrives. The pope weeps and then says, that thing out there looks like a craft from another world because it is a craft from another world. It has come to the Pope's kingdom because it is the kingdom of the Pope. Weird. Here's a direct link to the story, The Lion of Judah, prequel to the Abyssinian Mission. So here it is. I'm going to link to this in the Substack post. So this is it. This is the whole short story. It's called The Lion of Judah. You can look it up if you want. The Lion of Judah, the prequel to the Abyssinian Mission. Never heard of it, but it's a science fiction short story from years and years ago. I was looking to see if there's a date on it. Yeah, October 2005. So this highlighted bit right here, I just kind of read a little bit, But let me go back over that again. This is just some of the highlighted text here from the story. And you were right before as well. That thing out there looks like a craft from another world because it is a craft from another world. And it has come to the Pope's kingdom because it is the kingdom of the Pope. Katrina was silent for once in her life. The press is not here, said Leo. Somehow, that thing is up there. And no one except us even knows that it is. So no one even knows that I know that it is. No, Holy Father, no one will bear witness to what you do or do not do this morning. I swear to that. And don't worry about the guard. When it comes to UFOs, no one has credibility. For the first time in my life, Katrina looked at me with something less than enriched hatred. Pope Leo XIV sat very still for a long time, searching for something within him, ... Weird. That is really strange. So this is yet another story about Leo XIV from years and years ago. And it's not the same book as the first one that I mentioned. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up and mention it because I think we could be looking at the false prophet here. Just my opinion. All right, speaking of Israel, which we just did a little bit ago, Huckabee says U.S. isn't required to get permission from Israel to cut deals with the Houthis. That's pretty shocking that it would come from Huckabee because he loves Israel. Something fierce. Amid shock in Israel that at Trump's deal with the Yemeni terror group, ambassador indicates in television interview that the U.S. will only respond to the Houthi attacks if if American citizens are hurt. So this is Huckabee right here. U.S. actions against Iran-backed Houthi rebel attacks on Israel depend on whether they harm American citizens, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee said in an interview, part of which was broadcast by Channel 12 on Thursday. Now, this is coming from the Times of Israel, so Channel 12 is an Israeli channel. The United States is not required to get permission from Israel to make some type of arrangement that would get the Houthis from firing on our ships, Huckabee said in a clip from a full interview set to air on the Israeli network this weekend. Yeah, that'll be until they decide to edit his comment out, I suppose. I mean, wow. But yeah, obviously Huckabee loves Israel, and we've got an article pulled up here about that. But the point is, he was hired to repeat what he's told from Trump, and it appears to be that he did that in the last article. And then there's this article from Israel 365 News. U.S. Ambassador visits Judea and Samaria. Whoever does not stand with you does not stand with God, quote unquote. That's what he said. Here's Huckabee right here at Shiloh. For the first time, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee visited Judea and Samaria in the ancient Shiloh site, which, by the way, is that's where the red heifers are. There at Shiloh, some of them anyway, in the biblical region of Benjamin, at the invitation of the Yesha Council. The ambassador met with the heads of the authorities in Judea and Samaria as the guest of the head of the Benjamin Council. So anyway, but yeah, he's quoted here in this article saying, whoever does not stand with you does not stand with God, which he's clearly wrong, because they are not who they say they are. Even Jesus said so, right? Those who are pretending to be Jews, who aren't. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I don't know. I think Huckabee has loyalties to Israel. In this particular article, I think he's simply repeating what he's been told by Trump, that the U.S. does not need to get permission from Israel to cut a deal with the Houthis. So good for him on that account, but bad for him on this. So anyway, something to mention. In the Israeli government approves plan for full military occupation of Gaza. So this is on Headline USA. The Israeli government has approved plans to expand the genocidal war on Gaza that Israeli officials say will lead to the full Israeli military occupation of the Palestinian territory. The plan involves capturing more territory in Gaza, expanding the so-called buffer zone where the IDF has demolished virtually every structure and forcibly displacing Palestinian civilians who to move them all to a small area in southern Gaza. So anyway, pretty interesting. Plans to move into full military occupation of Gaza, which I'm a little shocked that they haven't already done that. But this article says that it is coming soon. Trump says U.S. will stop bombing Yemen. According to the president, the Houthis said they would not be blowing up ships anymore. So I think that's good. Hopefully that will be the case. Trump said on Tuesday that U.S. will stop bombing Yemen, claiming the Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, said they would not be blowing up ships anymore. The president said that the Houthis said that they don't want to fight anymore, and we will honor that. So I think that's good news. So that's a little piece coming through, maybe, at least temporarily. Again, we'll see where it goes. And then a couple more, actually, from the same site, Headline USA. RFK Jr. shuts down the Beagle Lab after decades of sickening experiments. We got rid of all the Beagle experiments on the NIH campus. So the Fauci Beagles are free. The Trump-led National Institutes of Health has shut down a controversial experiment that involved the systematic slaughtering of beagles. Yeah. The experiment, formerly run in-house by the NIH's Clinical Center in Maryland, involved injecting pneumonia-causing bacteria directly into the lungs of 2,000 beagles. And on it goes. They were torturing these poor dogs. The Fauci-era torture of innocent puppies stops today. So that is good news. I know Miss Emily out there will be very happy to hear that. But anyway, yeah, that was not good that it was ever happening. Very sad. But that is, in a way, how they condition these people to do unspeakable things, is when you lose your humanity and not affected by torturing animals, then they'll take you to the next step and they can use you to kill actual humans at that point. So it's a conditioning exercise for some of the people who come up with things like the and stuff like that. Because if you will torture beagles and not feel anything about that, then there's a good chance you will kill millions and not feel too sad about it either. Nashville police arrest officer who allegedly leaked trans shooter's writings. So you guys remember when everything, I think the first few pages or whatever were leaked to Steven Crowder and his team. Additional charges related to the Covenant School shooting materials further demonstrate the department's desire to use criminal charges to keep the public in the dark. Former Nashville police lieutenant was arrested Tuesday on charges of theft, burglary, and official misconduct after he was accused of taking files, including records from a school shooting where a deranged self-identified trans person killed 3 9-year-olds and 3 adult staffers. In announcing the arrest of Garrett Davidson, the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, said he used his position within the Office of Professional Accountability at the Metro Nashville Police Department to gain access to restricted areas. Quote, he then took multiple criminal case files, internal investigation files, case files, original case files, and other documents he was not authorized to retain, according to a TBI news release. Davidson was booked into the Nashville jail on a $150,000 bond. And then his attorney provided a statement saying that the charges represent a transparent attempt to discredit and silence a whistleblower who exposed serious misconduct within Metro Nashville Police Department. So you can see the two sides sort of arming up against each other, at least legally, on what they're going to be talking about in court. But you know, you've got the whistleblower who provided the information. But of course, I don't know how much they may prosecute this guy. I don't know. But I mentioned a few weeks ago now that Kash Patel and the FBI have released the full manifesto from this crazy person here that did the shooting, Audrey Elizabeth Hale. So anyway, just wanted to update you a little bit on that particular story. Again, that happened just a few miles from where I'm sitting right now, back in 2023. Trump cut off contact with Netanyahu over manipulation concerns, an Israeli reporter has claimed. This is the moment Donald Trump became president, according to this article. Let's hope it's true. I don't know. Fingers crossed. Don't hold your breath, though. Trump praises Houthis' bravery. And I think it's pretty safe to say you don't have to be on either side. I'm not on the side of the Houthis. I'm not on the side of the Gazans and Palestinians. I'm not on the side of the Israelis. I don't want to be involved in any of it. Just leave us out of it. That's what I say. Anyway, yeah, and then Trump makes a deal with the Houthis with no provisions for Israel's security. How about that? The Houthis declared victory on Tuesday after Trump announced the U.S. would stop bombing Yemen as part of the deal between the U.S. and Yemen, which reportedly does not include any provisions for Israel's security. So, yeah, because they've been shooting missiles from Yemen all the way over into Israel. Although they've been, doing, I think, not that much damage, but still. Apparently that wasn't part of the conversation. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? All right. You guys know about the new obese black lady statues showing up all over the world? Yes, the new obese black lady statue in Times Square is ghastly, but it's worse than you think. I think most people thought that it was a statue of Letitia James. I mean, that's been the consensus as far as I can tell, because it looks just like her. New statue just went up in Manhattan. Once again, it's being pushed as a symbol of female empowerment. Take one look at it, and you have to ask, who exactly is this supposed to inspire? Well, I think that's obvious, don't you? The statue is of a fictional, obese black woman with a blank expression, slumped shoulders, and a very saggy-looking chest. They're calling it a nod to Michelangelo's David, but there's nothing noble or uplifting about it. She doesn't look proud or strong. She looks tired, checked out, and maybe on a cocktail of antidepressants. Yeah, she looks fed up with white men. I think that's what she's actually portraying, don't you? They're calling it a nod to Michelangelo's David. Yeah, I don't think so. Do you? I don't think so at all. I'm looking to see, I've heard several different size estimates here. Yeah, okay. This says, visitors and residents of Times Square have a new piece of artwork to view these days. A 12-foot tall statue. So they've made her a giant. Literally a giant. 12 feet. I was looking to see if there's any pictures of actual humans next to her. Here they've got her in the meme next to McDonald's, which that kind of makes sense. This is an AI-generated picture, I think, based on how clean and perfect it looks. And the statue's a little bit different. So that is not real. Don't buy that one. And then this one is real. No, I'm just joking. Hey, everybody loves Popeye's chicken. Come on. But I guess the statue really does. Now we've got the Ozempic memes, and we've got I'm telling my kids that this was Letitia James. She does look like her. Here's where she says she's on her break, B-R-A-K-E. And so these are some of the other black lady statues that are showing up. I don't know if they're the same size. I can't really tell. These people are too far back away from her. But this one's 12 feet. So another, giant there. Here's another one. Not quite as hefty. In Florence, Italy. So yeah, they're appearing everywhere. And I don't know if people don't know where they're coming from or what. Yeah, 6 fingers, question mark. I don't know. Plenty of braids on this lady, but I still say it's Letitia James. They do love her in New York. All right, and then RT article I got pulled up, the only one actually from that site. Ukraine should agree to Putin's proposal of talks immediately, Trump said. U.S. President, however, expressed doubts that Kiev will be able to reach a deal with Moscow. Well, the guys are on the train doing their lines of coke, so maybe they'll reach a consensus with Zelensky and Putin. I doubt it, though, don't you? President Trump has urged Ukraine to immediately agree to the proposal of direct, unconditional talks put forward by Putin earlier on Sunday. Writing on Truth Social, Trump suggested the proposed direct negotiations would at least help to clarify the positions of the sides of the conflict and show whether or not a deal is possible. Trump is the king of the deal, isn't he? Seems to be his number one motivator and driver of everything. President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately, Trump wrote. If it becomes clear that reaching a deal is not possible, European leaders in the U.S. will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly, Trump stated. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, he added. Yeah, we know they want the forever war to continue. But obviously Putin is stepping up here and trying to stop the war from going on. And I thought he was wanting to take over all of Europe, didn't you? That's what we were told. Okay, let's see here. Just in, Trump announces U.S. mediated full and immediate ceasefire between warring nuclear powers of India and Pakistan. Situation between warring neighbors and nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, seem to be devolving into an open war as the two countries targeted military bases and exchanged missile and drone attacks. This military conflict arose after a deadly terrorist attack on tourists in a disputed Kashmir region, which again killed 26, raising concerns of a full-blown military confrontation between the two nations that have historically had a tumultuous relationship marked by multiple conflicts since their partition in 1947. Yeah, if you don't know, Pakistan used to be part of India, and it was partitioned and broken off in 1947. So that's part of the hatred there. But the efforts by the Trump administration have made a difference. After a full night of negotiations mediated by Vance and the Secretary of State Rubio, ceasefire has been achieved. Trump announced this on Truth Social. After a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then Rubio posted much the same. So maybe it's over. I thought that was pretty interesting. That's on the Gateway Pundit. Maybe it's over. We'll see. I feel like I say that a lot. We'll see. Okay. And then this is really just another version of that same article. India and Pakistan agreed to a full ceasefire. Both countries announced the ceasefire Saturday morning. Pakistani foreign minister issued a statement on X saying the ceasefire would take effect immediately. He added that Pakistan has always strived for peace and security in the region, but never at the cost of compromising its sovereignty or territorial integrity. Indian foreign minister also confirmed the ceasefire through a similar statement while insisting that India will continue to take a hard line against terrorism in all of its forms. So it appears that Trump has come through on this. Trump and team has stopped this from going thermonuclear, we hope. But then we also know what happens with the whole peace, and then wham, something large happens, right? The old peace and security thing may not be what it appears to be, but I hope it is. In 2019, we were warned that a nuclear war between India and Pakistan in 2025 could potentially kill 125 million people and cause mass starvation worldwide. So this is a Substack by Michael Snyder, which many of you guys know. What are the odds? When I heard that a study that was released in 2019 had analyzed the damage that would be done by a nuclear war between India and Pakistan in 2025, I knew that I had to investigate. It turns out that this study really does exist. And it's linked right here. It's science.org. According to the authors of the study, a nuclear war between India and Pakistan in 2025, wonder if they just picked that date randomly, would cause up to 125 million direct fatalities and would produce a nuclear winter which would cripple global food production. Yeah, this would be pretty much the end because that one nuclear blast may not be the only one that happens, you know what I mean? It's kind of a chain reaction oftentimes. So yeah, up to 125 million direct fatalities, they're saying here. Is it just a coincidence that they picked the year 2025? If so, that's pretty wild, because a war between India and Pakistan has just broken out. Now, this article is dated May 9th, so just a couple days ago. I don't know. It appears that Trump has brought peace here to the region and negotiated peace, but this is really strange that this was written. And it, again, it's a science, what was it, science.org, which is probably like a think tank type of thing. Where'd that link go? Here it is. Yeah, science.org. Says, if you read the actual study, you will discover that it says that a nuclear war between the two nations would cause mass starvation around the world, and it would take more than 10 years for the global climate to fully recover. India and Pakistan, it is 11:11 p.m., by the way. India and Pakistan may have 400 to 500 nuclear weapons by 2025, with yields from tested 12 to 45 kiloton values and a few hundred kilotons. So 12 to 45 kilotons to a few hundred kilotons. If India uses 100 strategic weapons to attack urban centers, and Pakistan uses 150, fatalities could reach 50 to 125 million people. And nuclear ignited fires could release 16 to 36 TG of black carbon in smoke, depending on yield. The smoke will rise into the upper troposphere, be self-lofted into the stratosphere, and spread globally within weeks. Surface sunlight will decline by 20 to 35%. And that is, I'm just sidebar here, that is on top of the geoengineering programs that are already dimming the sun 25%. So surface sunlight will decline by 20 to 35%, cooling the global surface by 2 to 5 degrees C. Dane says that the Earth has warmed 3.5 degrees C at this point. So it would be bringing it back down, according to this, with the smoke. And reducing precipitation by 15 to 30% with larger regional impacts. Recovery takes more than 10 years. Net primary productivity declines 15 to 30% on land and 5 to 15% in the oceans, threatening mass starvation and additional worldwide collateral fatalities. So that is super depressing. Let's hope this does not happen. But that is really strange. Don't you think that that article was even written and that they just randomly picked 2025? Israel and Pakistan have been kind of going at each other for a long time. But I think it's really strange that they just happen to pick 2025. Yeah, but we need to use solar power. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, we won't have any sunlight, but yes, get your solar panels out. Yeah, I mean, it's further proof that they know exactly what they're doing. They get us to switch off the coal plants in favor of renewable sources like solar panels and wind, and a nuclear blast darkens the skies for like a decade. So yeah, that makes total sense. All right, and then again for the anti-Trump people out there, which I know there are plenty of them, you know who you are. Altmarket.us, the Trump administration's biggest wins and biggest fails so far. So let's go through these. And, I have a hard time, and it's really almost impossible to convince people that not 100% of everything Trump always does is terrible and bad and evil. There's that. Now, let me ask you a question. Is everything you do 100% totally wonderful and perfect all the time in your life? I didn't think so. But the point here is that, yes, he's making some mistakes. Absolutely. I totally agree with that whole side of the argument here. He is making some mistakes, but he's also done some really good things. So here's what this article says. Back in 2016, Brandon Smith here that wrote this article said, I predicted of a resounding win for Trump in his election campaign against Hillary, despite a chorus of voices telling me that I was crazy. The arguments from the skeptics was that the establishment would never allow Trump into office. My position on the event was relatively straightforward. The conservative populist movement was far too strong to deny the globalists might not see a Trump White House as a total loss if they could control it from behind the scenes or sabotage it with a national crisis, which they did, of course, with the book. That's what he goes on to talk about here. BLM riots and so forth. Fabricated crisis over with a 99.8% survival rate that didn't exist. I'm just adding that. By November, the election was effectively rigged in favor of Biden in 2020. It was effectively rigged in favor of Biden. It's not just the shady mail-in ballot voters. Millions of them magically disappeared by the 2024 election. No, they tried it. They did try it on the 2024 election. It's just that they had people in places to stop those ballots, the ballots that were loaded onto trucks from being brought in. They literally stopped some of that from happening. It was also the establishment media censorship of vital news stories that could have turned public opinion against Democrats, along with social media censorship of conservative dissent. All of these factors gave Biden the win back in 2020. All right, so this guy is saying, to be fair to Trump, he walked right into a den of vipers and parasites. He was surrounded by people who were intent on controlling his policies and sabotaging his second-term prospects. There are thousands of cabinet positions to be considered, and Trump trusted the wrong people to fill them. His second term and dramatic reboot of the federal government has been nothing short of epic. Again, this is this article written by Brandon Smith. So I'm just repeating here what he's saying. I have far less to criticize this time around, though there are still some serious problems to address. First, I want to go over Trump's first quarter in office and examine his greatest wins to this point. Some people might not see certain items in this list as wins, and he says, I don't really care. Like they say, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Win number 1, complete shutdown of illegal immigration. So we'll just go over the bullet points here. I totally agree with that. I would give Trump an A on the border, maybe an A+ on the border. He has shut it down, folks. I mean, there's like 0% of people crossing the border now, considering it was, 20 million that came across when Biden was in there? This is an undeniable win, he says, this guy. So yeah, complete shutdown of illegal immigration. Win number 2, DOJ closes USAID and other saboteur agencies. Yep, I think that's definitely a win, don't you? Getting rid of the fraud and waste. Win number 3, the tariff campaign. Might be a little too early to make the call on this, but there's been positive movement on the trade front because of Trump's tariffs. The UK has capitulated and accepted 10% tariffs while cutting their taxes on U.S. goods to around 1%. American products will flow freely across the Atlantic. And then it talks about China. China's having a real hard problem here, and they are apparently coming to the table to negotiate. We talked about that last week with the ongoing, I guess you could call them demonstrations and riots going on in China right now, because they're shutting down lots of the manufacturing because of these tariffs. So it is working as planned. Win number 4, removal of the LGBT, I would add Q, P, S for Satanism, DEI propaganda from schools and federal institutions. I would say that is officially what's happening, but unfortunately they're still hanging in there, aren't they? As much as they can. Win number 5, freedom for January 6th prisoners. And then people make the argument that, Trump should never have allowed it to happen in the first place. But most of the people who were arrested for J6 happened once Biden got in and Trump was no longer the president to then pardon them back in 2021. So it would have been after that. So most of the people that got arrested was enough into the Biden administration that Trump couldn't have done anything about it. Fail number 1. So let's get into the failures. Failure number 1, exposure of Biden's economic manipulation. Biden administration's economic manipulation. That's failure number 1, according to this guy. Trump has not done a very good job warning the American public about the Biden administration's manipulation of economic data. The Democrats spent 2 years denying that stagflation was a threat and then spent 2 years claiming inflation was declining, which it wasn't. They claimed jobs and GDP were rising. They said the financial system is strong as it's ever been. Yes, because all of the numbers were lies. So this guy is saying that Americans are not aware of these rigged numbers, and they will inevitably blame Trump as the true data comes out and the stats go into decline. Trump needs an economic representative or czar that gives the public detailed analysis on how the Democrats use disinformation to hide recession signals, which many of us know that was what was going on, but I think the general population doesn't know that. So if the economy does start to tank, Trump will get the blame. But that always happens no matter who the president is, doesn't it? Failure number 2, the Epstein files release. And then there's some detail on that. We won't go into that again. Failure number 3, foreign aid to Israel. That's a huge one in my book. Huge. And then this guy is saying that's a big deal to him as well. Failure number 4, continued military aid to Ukraine, something we're hearing about often. So, yeah, Trump's talking tough against Zelensky, and yet they're still funding Ukraine. So what in the world's going on there? So hopefully that'll get straightened out, but I don't know. It's not looking like it's going to happen right now. And then again, something that we mentioned, I don't know, a few weeks ago on this show, Real ID and biometric tracking of U.S. citizens. The Real ID program is another ugly remnant of the Bush and Obama era. It is essentially a requirement for mandatory biometric tracking of anyone traveling by air. The reason you can use a U.S. passport as a substitute for the ID is because passports have already have biometric in place on travelers' photos. There is truly no practical need for Real ID. It only serves to intrude on the privacy of U.S. citizens. It's not going to prevent terror attacks. It's not going to speed up airport processing. The TSA will still be a thing. With mass biometrics, they might as well put a LoJack on every traveler with cell phones. They've basically already done that. Real ID was in development long before Trump's rise to the White House. DHS claims they will not have access to the files, but I don't buy that for a second, and that this is a state-based program. They went through the states because that makes it more difficult for any single administration to shut the program down. That makes sense, doesn't it? Anyway, this goes on about Real ID. So I thought that was pretty good. It's a short little collection of the wins and losses here, the wins and fails of the Trump administration. I thought it was worth pointing out. I do agree with all of that, really. I mean, some of the wins are really good, and yet some of the losses or failures are something that have to be addressed, I think. And there are other failures you could certainly add to that list. They're just not on this particular article. I thought this one was kind of strange. This one's a Raw Story, which is a total leftist rag type of magazine, or website. Don't see how this is possible. Experts slam Trump's push to resettle white Afrikaners. White Afrikaners are mostly farmers in South Africa. I have actually talked to some when I went to South Africa years ago. They're nice people. So, of course, Raw Story is going to be against that because they're all for immigration if it's the right skin color of people, but not white Afrikaners, you see. So this is sort of one of those, it's a dichotomy in a way, but it's mostly gaslighting, because what they're doing here is saying how terrible Trump's immigration policy would be if he allows these white people in, when they've been all for it if the people weren't white, right? An immigration law expert is suspicious of Trump's reported new efforts to resettle white South Africans into the United States. Trump signed a controversial executive order in February extending refugee status to Afrikaners, a move long desired by white supremacists, because you can't support white people and not be a white supremacist, and that appears to have been a pet issue of Trump's longtime ally and South African immigrant Elon Musk. So it's Musk's fault, who has said that the country's government has enacted racist policies against the group responsible for apartheid. Yes, it's called reverse apartheid. It's happening. They're literally murdering white farmers in South Africa. But a new report by The Lever suggests these efforts could be taking a dramatic new step, even as the Trump administration has essentially shut down the refugee resettlement program for everyone else. So you see, that's what I was saying. They're mad that he shut down the refugee resettlement program, meaning that the borders closed. Everything Biden did by leaving the borders wide open for tens of millions of people. They wanted that to continue, but they don't want these white farmers from South Africa to be relocated to the United States when their lives are literally in jeopardy. They're being murdered. And so this story is actually putting quotes around the violent attacks right here. Trump's executive order back in February raised eyebrows because it focused not just on South Africa's new land expropriation policy, but on, quote, violent attacks on white farmers, which is true. It's not a, quote, violent attack. It is literally a violent attack. There are many stories about that. Entire families being wiped out, which echoes long-standing white nationalist conspiracy theories pushed by Tucker Carlson and others on the far right that there's a plot to ethnically cleanse white people from the nation. So Raw Story says, don't believe your eyes. It's not happening. White people are not being murdered. In South Africa, there is no such thing as reverse apartheid, when all of the proof and all the evidence would counter that narrative. So I think it's 100% real, and I think he does need to help these people. I don't know if resettling them to the United States is necessarily the answer, but obviously they're getting thumped over there, and Trump's trying to help them. So anyway, that was the article I had pulled up on Raw Story just because I thought it was so much gaslighting, it was ridiculous. All right, a couple articles from Forbidden Knowledge TV. This is one I mentioned at the beginning of the show. British Royal Advisor confirms Prince Andrew was effing underage girls, which we know this, right? He was a royal, and that's what they do. And not just girls. They like boys, too. The younger, the better, from what I've heard. Hybrids and chimeric animals from Plum Island, ? That's another article. And then Klaus Schwab's daughter confesses the WEF plan to murder billions of people. Isn't that nice? There's his daughter. She looks just like him. All right, and then I wanted to mention these because I really like this guy. He's been on several shows that I've seen recently, and I think he's putting out very accurate and good information. Raytheon whistleblower, exclusive Raytheon whistleblower who exposed the neutrino earthquake weapon in Antarctica. And yes, he was saying that the accident, the earthquake that happened, I think there were two of them that happened in Christchurch, New Zealand, were a direct result of this neutrino earthquake weapon that they have set up in Antarctica, that he was basically briefed on this and told exactly how it happened. So here's a video on that. His name is Eric Hecker. And then here's a second one on him as well. Eric Hecker, Raytheon contractor in Antarctica. So there's two different ones here, and ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net is where those are. Pretty interesting stuff if those kind of things float your boat. And then LeoHoman.com, meet the new Pope, same as the old Pope. Will we get fooled again in what's really going on that they don't want us to know about? Famed constitutional attorney and civil liberties advocate John Whitehead sounds off on Trump's bizarre executive order signed on April 28th. The big news today is that Trump has signed a trade deal with the United Kingdom. Can you believe it? That was Trump's big announcement. A trade deal with America's 9th largest trading partner? Whoopee. I personally have never bought anything in any store that said made in the UK that I can remember. Spare me, that is not news. Those in the news business, they're really professional propagandists, are also wanting us to have our eyes on the Vatican and who the next pope will be. Wow. An American liberal from Obama's Chicago stomping grounds. Yeah, I thought that too. As soon as they said he was from Chicago, I'm like, oh, he was probably a friend of Obama's. Pretty much a guarantee. So that's on Leo Homan's website. And then on his Substack, I pulled up this one. Elon Musk now admits AI will replace bloated, inefficient federal government. Large swaths of federal workers being terminated does not mean the end of government involvement in our lives. It just means you'll no longer have humans making decisions that affect your life. So this is obviously cause for much concern. Many of us voiced concerns when Musk said he was going to eliminate large numbers of federal workers. Not that we were feeling sorry for the federal workers who have for years had cushy jobs with nice benefits and wages that have outstripped those in the private sector. No, we were concerned by what Trump and his superstar Doge aide Musk might want to replace those workers with. So yeah, I mean, there's that. There's also a lot of people who were just superfluous and literally just sitting around playing games on their phones all the time. You know. So anyway, this article is on Leo's Substack, leohoman.substack.com. And then I pulled up several here from Natural News. So just these headlines here. New federal identification standards for air travel set against lenient ballot requirements spark policy debate. Starting May 7th, U.S. residents must present a Real ID compliance license, passport, or other federally approved ID for domestic air travel and federal facility access. Non-compliant travelers risk being denied boarding. So this is about Real ID, this one's important. So origins of the Real ID and the landscape, compliance and its limits, contrasting standards, air travel security versus voting access, privacy and overreach, and then on it goes. So that's on naturalnews.com. And then how Meta's free AI assistant turns private conversations into profit. Meta has launched Meta AI, a chatbot marketed as a helpful assistant, but designed to extract and monetize users' personal data for targeted advertising. Powered by Llama 4, Meta AI collects intimate details from conversations, including health concerns and emotional struggles, without clear opt-out options. Unlike subscription-based AI services, Meta AI integrates with its ad network, turning private discussions into opportunities for product recommendations and ads. So we've all seen that. You'll be talking about something to a friend or family member, and then all of a sudden you look at your phone and you start seeing ads for the very same product you were just talking to that person about. So this is even a step further. This is using AI to sort of funnel all of that information in and then run ads to you that are based on things you've said in private conversations. Anyway, not good. Meta blurs the line between assistance and advertising, with employees raising ethical concerns about privacy and manipulation. You suppose? That one's on Natural News. California gas prices could skyrocket by 75% in 2026 following shutdown of oil refineries in the state. Yes, but it's Gavin Newsom. It's okay when he does it. I like that picture. California is on the brink of a fuel crisis due to the planned shutdown of 2 major oil refineries, which could lead to a 75% increase in gas prices by the end of 2026. That's on top of what they're already paying, which I'm not sure if it says what that is in here, but it's a lot. Refinery closures trigger ripple effect on supply and prices. California's energy collapse looms. So there's more info on this article. Natural News. Oh, Emily says San Diego gas prices are $5 a gallon. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I think they're, I don't know, 2 something. I think it's 2 something here. It's not 3. Where I live here, it's I want to say around 250, 260, somewhere in there. And then one more from that site. Polar ice rebounds confound alarmist predictions. New studies highlight climate's unpredictable dance. Well, and you probably hear in my voice that I'm not buying this one. Mr. Dane saying that these increases in the Antarctic ice sheet and other ice sheets are a total lie. That they are, what they do is kind of like with radiation. They'll say, they'll just lower the threshold, and they'll say, the threshold's at this place, and they'll say this is the level that's really terrible for you, and then they go from this place down to about there, and they'll say now that's the level that's actually dangerous for you. So they just lower the standards. And I think they're doing the same thing with the sea ice, not only in Antarctica, but all over the poles, both North and South poles. They're changing how they measure actual sea ice. They're measuring slush and calling it ice pack. This is something Mr. Dane's been talking about for a long time. But they have adjusted those numbers across the board, and they're calling slush that they can create with chemical ice nucleation processes. They can create slush. They're taking that and calling it ice pack. So this whole thing is, to me, is a narrative that is a total lie. That it's not necessarily increasing. They're just changing the way they're measuring it. So that's the background I'm giving you guys. This article, though, is saying that no, it's 100% true. So I would say be cautious when reading stuff on Natural News, because it can't always be trusted. Antarctica's ice sheet gained mass 107 gigatons annually from 21 to 23, offsetting sea level rise, while Arctic ice slowed since 2000, contradicting earlier predictions of rapid melting. And it says the reversal in Antarctica, driven by snowfall, which again can be, chemical ice nucleation. Antarctic's multi-decadal pause highlight natural viability, challenging assumptions of linear warming impacts and simplistic climate models. So this is just talking about how the numbers are up. Dramatic shift from decades of decline. Antarctica's sea ice recorded a record-breaking mass gain from 21 to 23, while the Arctic's sea ice loss slowed sharply over the past 2 decades. So again, they're using the chemical ice nucleation processes with geoengineering to increase the ice pack by calling it ice pack when it's slush. So I don't really buy this article is what I'm saying. I don't buy it. So I'm not saying sea level rise is necessarily something we need to all be worried about, because we all know if you have ice cubes in your glass of water and they melt in your glass of water, it doesn't overflow your glass of water. It all stays the same height, right? You just let your ice cubes melt in your glass of water. You don't have more water. It's the same. So same thing really with the ice that's in the seas. When it melts, yes, it's a tragedy. That is the Earth's refrigeration system, but it doesn't increase the amount of water that's now, flooding nations and coasts and stuff. Not saying that it's not happening at all. I'm just saying sea level rise to me is a little bit of a myth because of that. Because you have ice in the sea melting, yes. If it's ice on the land that's melting and then sliding off into the sea, yes, then you could get sea level rise. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I don't necessarily believe this whole natural news article. I'll just put it that way. Police state Texas House, so just the Texas House, passes a bill to heavily fine and imprison residents for posting political memes. King Charles would be happy. He would be very proud of this, and Keir Starmer. So this is in Texas. Violators face a Class A misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in jail and fines up to $4,000, while critics warn it risks suppressing free speech. Yes, I think that's the whole point. Texas is quietly cracking down on free speech in a big way after the state's Congress voted to pass a bill that would fine and send residents to jail for posting certain political memes online. While the bill has yet to pass the Senate, the bill and its backers have set a precedent moving in how state lawmakers view speech and what people can say online. So you thought Texas was a red state. Turns out maybe not, or at least the House isn't. And I've heard people say that most of the Republicans that are in the legislature are actually Democrats. So that's not good. Texas House of Representatives passed House Bill 366, April 30th, criminalizing political memes without government disclaimers. Yeah, I mentioned this guy before. House Speaker Dade Phelan was the author of that bill. The law requires disclosure for substantially altered images, audio or video, and political ads spending over $100, which would be pretty much everything, and applies to candidates, office holders, and committees. Violators face a Class A misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in jail and fines up to $4,000, while critics warn it risks suppressing free speech. The bill has sparked widespread backlash over free speech concerns and uncertain Senate support, reflecting a contentious shift in elections ethics rules. So they're trying, this is another grab here, they're trying to turn Texas completely blue, if you ask me. That's what it looks like. Breaking. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent strikes breakthrough trade deal with China. Mentioned this a little while ago, that this was coming up. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has reportedly secured a significant trade agreement with China, signaling a potential end to the protracted tariff war between the two economic powerhouses, meaning U.S. and China. Over the weekend, high-level talks were held in Geneva. Saturday's meeting lasted 8 hours. At one point, the Chinese took a break. Yeah, there was an article on Howe's website saying, oh no, China has left the bargaining table. And then he followed that up below that saying, now they're back. So yeah, they did take a break. Talks resumed shortly afterward, and the talks even resumed further today, on Sunday. Trump wrote on Truth Social that a very good meeting today with China occurred in Switzerland. Many things discussed, much agreed to. A total reset negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner we want to see for the good of both China and the U.S., an opening up of China to American business. Great progress made, Trump said. So, I don't know. Gateway Pundit article. We'll see where it goes, right? Jim Comey's daughter, prosecutor in the Epstein and Maxwell cases, now is also the prosecutor on the P. Diddy case. But I'm sure it's a coincidence. After being on SDNY's prosecution teams against Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, Jim Comey's daughter, former FBI head, right? Jim Comey's daughter is now on the DOJ's team against P. Diddy. You can't make this stuff up. The deep state is alive in New York. Where is Bondi? Before President Trump stepped into the White House, there was an attempted coup d'etat to have him removed from the office. This began with claims that the candidate and then President Trump was a Russian puppet, using false stories fed to the corrupt U.S. media. Jim Comey was a big part of the effort to remove Trump from office. He could not be trusted and was fired by Trump. Despite his questionable actions, Comey walks free today, making six-figure speaking fees while sharing his hatred of Trump. As many Americans know, Comey's daughter is a chip off the old dad's back. She works for the DOJ in New York. Now, it's being reported that fired former FBI head Jim Comey's daughter is part of the prosecutorial team in the P. Diddy case, after already being part of the case against Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell as well. So yeah, and surprise, the Diddy case is falling apart. So that's all. That's the whole point. You put her in charge of the prosecution, and then lo and behold, you have no case, and it's going to get thrown into chaos and thrown out. So P. Diddy here is probably going to be walking free, along with Luigi and whoever else, in my opinion. But we'll see. Anyway, that's on Gateway Pundit as well. A couple more from this site. Scott Jennings says the Democrat Party is going to get hit with the equivalent of a nuclear bomb next week. The Democrat Party. Former President Biden's years-long cognitive decline amounts to perhaps the worst-kept secret in American political history. Now in the wake of Biden's calamitous appearance on ABC's The View on Thursday with Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's Original Sin book, set for release on May 20th, CNN conservative commentator Scott Jennings, who's really good, by the way, I like him, anticipates explosive revelations. In fact, Jennings calls the expected revelations the equivalent of a nuclear bomb being dropped on the Democrat Party. So I'm looking to see what the nuclear bomb is going to be here. I don't think he means a literal nuclear bomb. Watching him over the last few years, Jennings said of Biden in a clip posted to X, reminds me that a whole bunch of people were telling us with a straight face that this man was capable of serving another 4 years as president. Indeed, earlier Thursday in The View, Biden delivered such an incoherent response to the question about his cognitive decline that former First Lady Jill Biden had to step in to answer the question for him. Yeah, well, more of the same. The former president also gave a nonsensical reply to a question about Harris's 2024 election defeat. That answer, however, probably stemmed as much from Biden's wokeness as from his diminished intellect. Likewise, Biden mumbled his way through an interview with BBC's Nick Robinson. And these appearances, Jennings continued, coupled with what I understand is going to be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb dropped on the Democrat Party when Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book come out next week. I don't know. I don't know what that's going to be, but it has to do with Biden's mental decline. I think that's pretty much a given. While his use of the phrase nuclear bomb, Jennings certainly teased quite a potential set of revelations. Of course, one can only guess at the nature of those revelations. To justify the tease, they would almost certainly have to involve Democrats and the establishment media's attempted cover-up of Biden's condition. After all, anyone with eyes and ears could recognize former president's decline long before 2024. So it appears to be that. We'll see what it is. I'm not too impressed, but I do like Scott Jennings. I think he is probably making a good point here, although we'll have to see what it is. And then the next two articles kind of go together. I touch whoever I want, MFer breaking. ICE body cam footage shows a Democrat representative verbally and physically assaulting federal agents. LaMonica McIver. Representative from where? Looking to see where she's from. Well, it says, lock her up and expel her from Congress. ICE body cam footage showed Democrat Rep. LaMonica McIver verbally abusing and physically assaulting federal agents at a detention facility in Newark. Democrat Rep. McIver, woman in the red jacket, physically attacked ICE agents at Delaney Hall Detention Facility in Newark on Friday. Democrat members of Congress and the Newark mayor went to, quote, inspect the Delaney Hall Detention Facility in Jersey when a violent altercation broke out amidst a breach. So, yeah, I mean, you got Congress people literally attacking ICE enforcement officers. This is her with the red jacket. Let's see what happens. Looks like an insurrection to me. LaMonica McIver. I touch whoever I want, MFer, she says. So, it's okay when she does it. Definitely on the table. DHS spokesperson says members of Congress may soon be arrested for body slamming a female ICE agent. Body slamming. So I don't have footage of that, although it probably does exist. There's a video here, but it's just them talking about what happened in this little news article here. Holy Shiite. DHS confirms that the Democrat members of Congress may soon be arrested because they have body cam footage of the officials assaulting law enforcement at the ICE facility in New Jersey. It mentions LaMonica McIver as well, verbally abusing federal agents. So that's part of it. But also someone got body slammed. A female agent got body slammed. Now, who did that, I don't know. But those Dems are losing their minds. Elon Musk reveals Doge discovered 100,000 active federal employees who were also collecting unemployment insurance. So they were employed and yet they were collecting unemployment insurance. Musk joined Laura Trump on her show on Fox News. During conversation, Elon revealed that the Doge team found 100,000 active federal employees. No, not just one or two, 100,000. Also collected unemployment insurance benefits while they were still at work. Because they know how to milk the system, don't they? And then there's the clip, if you want to see it. Again, not a surprise, is it? Sitting congressman reveals secret underground tunnel beneath the U.S. Capitol, claims there are still hidden network of passageways still unknown to the public. I saw this and was not surprised in the least. We know they have domes and underground bases. I mean, obviously, they probably have some tunnels under some of the buildings there. I think the only interesting thing about this is perhaps how old they are. And they do go into that, and there's a video clip right here. It says, come with me to see one of the hidden secrets of the Capitol. Let's see what he says.
So this is one of the neat things about the U.S. Capitol. Of course, this building, construction started in the 1700s. And there are all sorts of little hidden passageways. You saw I just pulled this cover up. Yeah. And you can see, if we get the camera to come over, don't fall in. We don't need a workers' comp claim today. But you can see there's a passageway. These are long stairs that used to be here that were closed off. We're just off of what's called Statuary Hall, which at one time was the actual House chamber. So, and it's outside there. But this is just an example of some of the little hidden secrets in the Capitol And so one of the things when we bring tour groups in, if it's a small enough group, if it's a big group, we can't do it. But if it's a small group, we'll actually take them down this hole. Believe it or not, my big self have actually gotten down, and more importantly, out of this hole. I'm not going to debut that again for today, but suffice to say, I've been able to live and tell about it and get out of there. But it goes all the way down. It's an old staircase, and I'm told, I can't verify this, I'm told that this staircase, which opens to, if you go down, it formerly opened to the outside, was one of the staircases that British soldiers used when they breached the Capitol during the War of, I think it was 1814, when they actually attacked Washington. When they came in, it was one of the stairs that British soldiers actually came up. So a lot of just amazing history in this building. And so when folks come from North Carolina, we try to show things that if it's a small enough group, things are timed right, and actually let folks go down there. The kids seem to love it. A lot of older folks, not so much. But it's just one of the neat things about the Capitol, as well as the other day-to-day things that folks see all the time. Thought I might share that with you.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was pretty interesting that is like that. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me that there are underground passageways, hidden passageways under some of the buildings there. Breaking: U.S. Marshals arrest rabid leftist who spat on Ed Martin. Yeah, U.S. Marshals know the identity of the rabid leftist who spitted or spat on acting D.C. U.S. Attorney Ed Martin. Assaulting a federal officer, is a crime. I think spitting on them would also be a crime, don't you? Seems to me. So if you missed that story, here's what happened.
So we need to get really focused.
You are Martin.
How you doing?
Well, there you go. She just rears back and spits all over the guy. So even the dog was more civilized than she was. But yeah, they've figured out who she was, and they will soon be pressing charges if they haven't already. Yeah, pretty weird. Anyway, that's the world we live in, isn't it? How NASA may have just pinpointed the exact day Jesus died. I mentioned this the other day, I think, on this show. April 3rd, 33 AD. I don't buy it. NASA scientists have calculated the date a lunar eclipse occurred in AD 33 that may pinpoint the day of Jesus' crucifixion. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to show you what I personally believe is the day of Jesus' crucifixion, and it's not April 3rd, 33 AD. In Genesis 1, we read that God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." So it's not surprising that there would be at least one sign in the heavens to mark the death of Jesus as a sacrifice for the sins of the world. The New York Post reported that NASA's astronomical models suggest that a lunar eclipse turned the moon red over Jerusalem on Friday, April 3rd, 33 AD, a date that many scholars tie to Jesus' death. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, we read from the 6th hour, noon, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. But extra biblical texts indicate that in addition to this daytime darkness, a blood moon occurred the night of Jesus' death. At his crucifixion, the sun was darkened, the stars appeared, and in all the world people lighted lamps from the 6th hour till evening. The moon appeared like blood. Read a passage from the Report of Pilate, part of the New Testament's Apocrypha. So I didn't know if you'd heard of the Report of Pilate. The Bible Answer Site Got Questions reported that AD 33 is likely the year Jesus' crucifixion was, based on prophecy in the book of Daniel. Daniel 9, the prophet writes of being visited by the angel Gabriel while he and his fellow Jews were being held in Babylonian captivity. Gabriel told him that the time from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem is issued until the anointed one, i.e. Jesus, is cut off, will be 69 weeks of years, or 483 years. And then it talks about converting the 360-day calendar to be used by the Jews, blah, blah, blah. So there's some more detail here, and then it goes back into April 3rd, AD 33 was the date, the exact date Jesus died, they think. So what I was going to say about that was, and if you've seen any of the End Times Dates videos that I put out starting in 2019 up through about the end of 2021, you may recognize this. This is actually a semi-blurry, my apologies, photo of this timeline that I have on the wall in my office. And yes, Kathy Moore has hit the nail on the head. Michael Rood pinpointed crucifixion date. Sorry, cannot remember right now, but not 4/3/33. Kathy, you're exactly right. It's exactly what I was going to say. That is what we're looking at here. This is a little snippet here of the Michael Rood timeline. Now, Michael Rood, if you guys didn't know, is someone who spent 40 years of his life painfully putting together the Gospels in chronological order. And because he did this and spent so much time researching this, he figured out exactly what the dates were by figuring out exactly the chronological order of the Gospels. And they're all, and not just one Gospel, but all of them. So this that we're looking at, this semi-blurry picture here, is the last few days leading up to the crucifixion and then right after that. So the important part here really is on the vertical, and the text is a little hard to read, so I will read it for you. We'll start here. The fig tree withers. So this day right here is starting with the fig tree withers. And if you look at these numbers right above it, it's the 25th of April. This is April, because here's May 1st right here, right? So the 25th of April, according to Michael Rood, was the day the fig tree withers. Now, that is in the year 28, though. It's talking about the year 28, so AD 28. All right, fig tree withers on the 25th. The Temple Mount sermon was on the 26th. The Judas conspiracy was on the 27th. Note that 27 is a bunch of threes. Kind of weird. The Last Supper and the betrayal was on the 28th. Early on the 28th. And then the Passover and the crucifixion was at the end of the 28th. And 28th is 4 sevens. Don't you think God would probably make an important date be a bunch of sevens? Seems like he would to me. So Jesus was literally crucified on April 28th, AD 28. According to Michael Rood's research here. Again, he spent 40 years doing this. I think he probably knows what he's talking about. So crucifixion, AD 28, happened on April 28th, not AD 33 on April 3rd. So that is not whatever NASA's putting out about that. I personally do not believe. And then looking at the rest of this, we have after the crucifixion, women prepare the spices, 29th into the 30th, resurrection on the Sabbath, which according to this is going to be on the 1st of May. First fruits presentation on the 2nd of May, first appearance really on the 2nd of May, AD 28. And then about May 9th, he appears to Thomas. So anyway, and at some point, we talked about it, but at some point in here, in this gap right here, is when Jesus, who was resurrected, descended into hell and got the keys from death, hell, and the grave from Satan and reascended to, well, first, to be seen here, first appearance right here, to be seen by Mary, by the women, and he told Mary not to touch him because he had not ascended to his Father yet. That happened here around May the 2nd of the year 28. And because he hadn't ascended to his Father, he still needed to put the blood onto the mercy seat on the real one, on top of the Ark of the Covenant, the real Ark of the Covenant, in heaven, the throne room. So he still had to do that yet. That happened apparently in this period of time right here. Because at this point, when he appears to Thomas, he lets Thomas touch him. Here, he couldn't be touched. Here, he could be touched. I think it's fascinating. Anyway, this is a really cool timeline. It's on my wall. The actual version of this is in full clear detail. So I will try and take new pictures of this. I took this with an old camera. And not very good lighting. So I'll do it again and see if I can get a better shot of it. But it's really interesting, I think. So I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention and note that it was not April 3rd, 33 AD, in my opinion. See what you guys are seeing. Yeah, I have his Bible book. It is amazing, Kathy says. Yeah, the chronological Gospels. And he probably has others. We have all the years wrong, according to Rube. Yeah, Michael Rood has pretty much pointed out that all the years are wrong. And that is why I come back to the series that I put out, which is based on the year, on the book and video series called 2028 End, says that Jesus Christ will return 2,000 years after crucifixion. His crucifixion and resurrection happened in the year AD 28. 2,000 years later would be 2028. Which is why I said going back, 7 years from September of 2028 puts you as September of 2021 as the beginning of the final 7 years. That's what I've been saying all this time, since 2019. Just working backwards. So I think it's fascinating, and I do think Rood is exactly right personally. And we're seeing things unfold dramatically fast at this point, and it would not surprise me if Jesus does return in 2028. I still think that, who knows? But we'll see. We'll either be here, or I guess we'll be taken out some other way. But I don't think we will be zapped out of here by a pre-trib rapture, because we're already in the tribulation. That's my opinion. I'm sure many of you guys share that same opinion. All right. Speaking of tribulation, I guess you would have tribulation if your Igloo cooler rips off your finger. Igloo expands their recall of coolers due to the risk of fingertip amputation. So if you guys are proud owners of Igloo coolers, you might want to double check, make sure that you don't have this particular model. Nothing like finding out on a random Friday that your favorite cooler might accidentally chop your hand off if you're not careful. You may remember this story from February. Igloo recalls more than 1 million coolers because the handles are causing finger amputations. Man. Well, apparently the problem was bigger than they thought. This is from a tweet from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. Probably heard of them. Recall. Igloo Products expands recall to nearly 1.2 million 90-quart rolling coolers. Fingertip amputation and crushing hazards. The toe handle can pinch consumers' fingertips. Get free replacement handle, and then contact the website and the phone number here. So your finger was getting crushed in the handle, apparently. Igloo just expanded voluntary recall of more than 1 million coolers because there's a slight risk of amputation or crushing with the product. Yes, amputation. Yeah, so coolers made from 2019, coolers made from 2019 to 2024 are affected by the recall. Igloo will simply send you a replacement handle if you ask. So it's just the handle, not the whole cooler, I guess. Unless you'd rather risk losing all your fingers in the next time that you're on the ball field. Or tailgating, as they say in Tennessee. It's all about the tailgating at the football games around here where I live. People don't care about baseball around here, and they only care about football. And personally, I care about hockey. But I don't do any tailgating. Yeah, we all have the years all wrong, according to Rude. Yep, I think so too. I think that's the case. Anyway, I thought that was kind of a strange article and wanted to point that out in case you guys have the Igloo coolers that they're in question here. And this one's kind of a funny one. A Kentucky boy orders 70,000 suckers after mom hands him her phone. Holly LaFavors got quite the shock when she opened the door to an Amazon delivery of 70,000 suckers. Apparently, she had handed her son her phone to keep him busy, and he spent $4,000 on dum-dums. And no, I don't mean congressmen. I mean actual dum-dums. Media outlets are reporting this story as an accidental order, but I'm not so sure, considering the way the kid reacted when his mom opened the door. He said, "My suckers are here," Liam said to Lefevre's as when all the suckers arrived. And we got the, who's that, Wednesday? From Addams Family. Looks kind of like. "It wasn't an accident," she says. "That doesn't sound like a kid who ordered the suckers by accident. Amazon didn't think so either. Apparently, as they refused to take back more than 8 of the 30 cases, though that's more than Lefevre's original post said they were going to take back." So she posted this on Facebook. However, as news of her son's diabolical sweet tooth spread, local businesses stepped up and bought the excess candy. So there you go. They took care of the suckers, and the kid is very, very disappointed. Says there are 2 big takeaways here. Parents, don't hand your kids your phone unless you've got them on a guided access for iPhones or on screen pinning for Android. So that those are safety mechanisms that don't allow you to go buy $4,000 worth of suckers or anything else. So yes, do that. And it says, if your kid does use your phone to put you in an awkward position, don't panic. Apparently there are plenty of suckers in the world willing to bail you out. Oh, I get it. That was pretty funny though. This kid is like super thrilled. My suckers are here. He had no idea that he spent $4,000. All right, InfoWars article, Ukraine-Russia war may end this week. Zelensky agrees to meet Trump's demand. Hasn't he done that before? That he meet with Putin in Turkey on Thursday. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey, he said. The Ukrainian president said. No, he's the Ukrainian dictator. So, yeah, a massive blow to the globalist warmongers. That, of course, is if it happens. Trump called Saturday a potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine as the bloodbath war moved closer to reaching an end, as Zelensky was supposed to engage in direct talks with Vladimir Putin in Turkey, at least very soon. A big week upcoming, he said. So, I don't know. Let's hope they can work it out. Anyway, that one's on InfoWars. Breaking U.S. and China reach historic trade deal after Trump tariff scheme forces nations to come to the negotiation table. So again, with China here, mentioned that earlier, happening in Switzerland. Yeah, so that's on InfoWars as well. One more from this site. It's official. Trump's FBI seized over 14 terabytes of Epstein child rape torture video evidence that was being hidden by the Biden DOJ. During a special Saturday transmission, AJ detailed the Trump administration's recent announcement that the DOJ is going through a massive trove of disturbing child molestation videos and other files that were in the possession of disgraced elitist pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Jones also gives his take on the latest James O'Keefe undercover video and says the public should be routinely receiving press conferences and updates from the DOJ and the FBI on the investigation into the Epstein documents until the appropriate files are completely released. Yes, I agree. Instead, we get nothing. We get crickets. Anyway, if you want to see the take here, that's on InfoWars site. And then, let's see, we got from modernity.news, border then versus now. Videos prove flood of illegals was intentional. I'm going to play this, but I can't play the audio because it's literally a Journey song playing in the background. So we won't do that, but you can get the idea of, okay, this is December 2023, and you get an idea here of the mess that Biden had, which they wanted. And then February 14, 2025, a month after Trump was in, you have really no one. Border Patrol just posted this epic video. Look at that. Whole buildings are gone. Before and after video. May 6th. So the entire building's wiped out. So that's good. Anyway, thought that was very interesting. Border then versus now. So just in a couple years. This one I thought was weird. I don't think I'll bother playing any of the video, but you guys can look at it if you want. Israel 365 exclusive. Muslim Mahdi Messiah calls for Arabs to build Jewish temple in Jerusalem and exodus of Palestinians from Gaza. So I don't know who this guy is, but they've got this funky embedded video here. 2 weeks ago, Israel 365 News published an article about Abdullah Hashim Abba al-Sadiq, commonly known as Abdullah Hashem, an Egyptian American and the founder of the AROPL, which is the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, which is probably the exact opposite of that, if you ask me. He claims to be the living successor. Get this. He claims to be the living successor of both the Prophet Muhammad and Jesus Christ. And his sermons bring a divine message to the global Christian community. He also claims to be the successor to Simon Peter, the successor to Jesus Christ, the true and legitimate Pope. He claims to be the Mahdi, a messianic figure and a redeemer of Islam who will come as the end of days ruler. After the article was published, Israel 365 was contacted by this guy, a spokesperson for his organization. He released a statement outlining a proposal by Abdullah Hashem for peace between the Palestinians and Israel based on the Arab world joining with Jews in the construction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem. So, weird. Anyway, this whole thing's a little bizarre to me because I don't know who this guy is, but he's calling himself the Mahdi. And he says he's a direct successor, a living successor of Muhammad and Jesus. And, oh yeah, Simon Peter. That's weird. Anyway, just that they even bothered reporting this, I think, is a little strange. But that's on Israel 365 News. What do you expect? That's what they do. All right, and then Geoengineering Watch for this week. Global Alert News, May 10th. Atmospheric river will slam Florida in the southeast with torrential rain. Well, I'm in the southeast. I hope I don't get torrential rain. We don't need it. Oh, Kathy says, I just saw a video on this guy yesterday. Supposedly he's curing people. Okay. Well, I'll have to look at that. I've not seen that. So, yeah, very weird. It's strange how people just kind of pop up out of nowhere. An atmospheric river will slam Florida in the southeast with torrential rain. It's a Washington Post headline. The report continues with this. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina will probably be hardest hit by dangerous downpours, including in some of the same places hit by deadly Hurricane Helene last year. Is this targeted weather warfare? Climate chaos and collapse is wreaking havoc around the world. Latest installment of Global Alert News is right here. So that is Dane's show for this week. And it's always a good one, like I said. geoengineeringwatch.org. And yeah, if you live in those areas, maybe keep an eye on what's going on in Florida, Georgia, South, and North Carolinas. And then, speaking of which, here is the scheduled weather for May 17th to the 21st, 6 to 10 day outlook. So, May 17th to the 21st, you got kind of a hot and cool situation again with mostly the southeast being above normal and the extreme southwest being above normal. And there's the precipitation we have, above normal in this area. It mentions some or most of that area, at least not really Florida, but others. They're saying here Florida is below normal precipitation for those dates. So I don't know. That's on NOAA's scheduled weather website, which is just what I call it. All right, and then King Charles article for this week. Video for this week. I thought we could listen to just a little bit of this. I won't bore you with the whole thing, but I do think it's interesting. And I guess the main thing I wanted you to take a look at was the wide shot here of Charles. Notice all the medals that he has. Medals that mean nothing, if you ask me. He probably just liked the pretty colors. But note the wide shot, though, when they show him on the stage and how many people are at this event. So could he be the coming biblical Antichrist? I think so, personally. But this is actually, and I did listen to this, it's an 8-minute clip. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we will watch just a little bit of it. Charles has called for global peace during a speech at a concert commemorating 80th anniversary of VE Day. The king said, we should rededicate ourselves not only to the cause of freedom. Note, they don't have freedom of speech in the UK at all anymore. Not only to the cause of freedom, but to renewing global commitments to restoring just peace where there is war. So I kind of understand the peace and the war thing here, but renewing global commitments, he's clearly talking about the climate, isn't he? So here is Chucky.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 80 years since my grandfather, King George VI, announced to the nation and the Commonwealth that the dreadful shadow of war has passed from our hearths and our homes. The liberation of Europe was secured. His words echo down through history as all this week, and especially today, we unite to celebrate and remember with an unwavering and heartfelt gratitude the service and sacrifice of the wartime generation who made that hard-fought victory possible. While our greatest debt is owed to all those who paid the ultimate price, we should never forget how the war changed the lives of virtually everyone.
So, getting past the commercial there, we'll just link to this in the Substack post, but, it's kind of an interesting speech. It's mostly about peace and talking about the 80th anniversary of VE Day. So, anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, and a pretty large crowd there. And the speech is not bad. I mean, it's a little boring, but, it is Charles that we're talking about here. So, anyway, wanted to mention that. It's on the Royal Family Channel on YouTube. Now, let's see here. We have on the Diamond Report Twitter X account, this time around, we have mostly video clips. I didn't do a lot of extra posting this week. Here's a link to Bob Pope Leo the 14th. I'm calling him Bob Pope. I'm actually a big fan of Bob Pope. I'm probably doing Bob Hope a disservice. I'm not a fan of Bob Pope, but Bob Hope, the actor, was funny. The comedian was hilarious. But anyway, I put up a few videos on my Diamond Report on X, so please follow along there if you didn't already. What I'm doing is I'm posting a clip here and there of some pieces of this show as make those available throughout the week. But, the full show is also available on YouTube, usually on Tuesdays. So if you're a YouTube fan, you can watch it there if you're not live. And many of you guys are, though. I wanted to, before we get too much further here, I wanted to show you guys this really cool, brand new, some scripture that we should take a look at. And it's from a source that you probably would have, I don't think that you would ever have even considered before to be a source of biblical information. And that is ants.
So I've just been sitting here this morning, drinking my coffee, kind of just watching the ants. They're kind of amazing when you just sit and watch them because they're so wise and so strong. In fact, the Bible talks about the ants. Now, please note that science has discovered that female ants are the worker ants. So the worker ants you see out doing all the work are actually females. And quite interesting that before there was all of this science, King Solomon knew that because he referred to them as her. God made women from the beginning to declare the praises of God and to teach. If you take the time to look up some of the original Hebrew words and all of the context about the creation of Eve in Genesis chapter 2, you will see that. For example, the verse Genesis 2:18. It says, "Then the Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." Notice the word helper. A worker is also a helper. The Holy Spirit is also described as the helper. Man and woman are both made in the image of God according to Genesis chapter 1. The woman is in the image of the Holy Spirit, which is part of God. You will notice he made the woman to be a helper, and the helper is one of the definitions of the Holy Spirit. King Solomon actually describes the Holy Spirit in the book of Proverbs by using the term wisdom, she and her. Now, I'm not saying the Holy Spirit is a woman. That is the aspect of God that he designed women in the image of. The helper, the comforter, the counselor, and the teacher. Who teaches us? The Holy Spirit. So no wonder God did that. Let's look at the root definition of the word suitable used in Genesis chapter 3 in Hebrew. It says, a primitive root, properly, to, that is, stand boldly, out, opposite by implication, causatively, to manifest, figuratively, to announce, always by word of mouth, to one present, specifically to expose, predict, explain, praise, bewray, certainly, certify, declare, declaring, denounce, expound fully, messenger, plainly, profess, rehearse, report, show forth, speak, surely, tell, utter, to be conspicuous, to tell, to make known, to tell, declare, announce, report, declare, make known, expound, to inform, to publish, proclaim, to avow, acknowledge, confess, and messenger, to be told, to be announced, and to be reported. So that is the definition of suitable from that verse in Genesis chapter 3. Now let's look at the word helper. Helper in Hebrew means help, succor, and one who helps. The definition of succor is assistance and support in times of hardship and distress, reinforcement of troops, to give assistance or aid to. So that is from the verse, Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Then the Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. You will also notice Proverbs chapter 30, verses 24 and 25 says, 4 things are small on the earth, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are not a strong people, but they prepare their food in the summer. Proverbs 31, 26 and 27 says, she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Solomon was using a lot of symbolism when he wrote the Proverbs. Most of you may not know that the book of Proverbs is actually very prophetic of the end and of the great apostasy, the adulteress, the harlot, as well as the true bride of Christ. So let's finish with the verse. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 through 11. Go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. How long will you lie down, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Your poverty will come in like a vagabond, and your need like an armed man.
So there you go, a little bit of inspiration from the ants. And of course, my good friend, Miss Lynn Liaz. Thought that was pretty cool. neat little video that she put together for us and shared with us. So just wanted to bring that to you guys. And then, yeah, if you're following along on the Diamond Report on Twitter X, you'll note that you'll see some video clips on here. Normally, I'm also retweeting other people's stuff too, important information, but this week I didn't really have much time to do that. However, just note that I'm fairly active on there. If you guys want to follow along, I certainly would appreciate that. And then Substack is one of the main ways you can stay in touch with this show and with what I'm doing. So Substack, and then obviously some of the other channels, some of the other websites that we'll mention here in a second. Substack's a good way to go, though, because it's totally free. You just put your email address in there and click through, and you can get whatever information you need about this show. Here is the most current one here in the center. The most current post is going to be whatever I just recently emailed out. In this case, it was the email from earlier today that has the links and info for tonight's show. And I do that on every Sunday. I'll send out an email blast to everybody who's on there, and then hopefully you'll get that information and we can continue on with the show. So that is the Substack. That address is in the upper right corner up there, diamonddisc.substack.com. So there's Substack, and then Subscribestar. You'll note that there are some new tiers. I've titled them, and it's actually, I think it's all the same exact amounts. I might have added one more here, but we've got one here that I would showcase, and I'll leave it to you guys to go check it out, because I'm really hoping that people will be interested in helping this show stay afloat. I mean, this is literally something I'm funding out of my own pocket pretty much every single week. And I do have a few people, you know who you are, who help by paying a little bit. And thank you very much. Lost another subscriber, though, on Substack the other day. So we're looking at Substack a minute ago. I think I've got 10 subscribers on there. I had 11. Down to 10. And on Subscribestar, I think we only have 5. Yeah, 5 is what it says right here. Right here. So again, you know who you are. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Helps me to be able to fund this actual program, and you can see the results of that just by watching. So thank you for doing that. And note that we do have a new tier here that's on Subscribestar. I'll let you go look at it. And it is called Dinner with Doug. And I will let you guys read the details there. Dinner with Doug. It's just an idea I had. I'm going to buy you dinner. So take a look at it. Kind of interesting. So yes, Dinner with Doug. So that's available on Subscribestar. And subscribestar.com/diamonddisc. Again, the link's in the box in the upper right up there. Here's the store, which many of you guys know. And hopefully we can get some support streaming in that way as well. That's always a good way to go. If you want a hoodie or a hat or something cool, there's several things to pick from there. And then if you don't want to spend any money, that's totally fine. Again, no pressure. It's just that I want to put it out there for people who do have the means and want to help and can help. It really does help me a lot. And then the other major thing you can do, of course, is share the show. And let your family, friends, even enemies know about it. And that really does help, actually. It helps with the metrics. It helps with spreading the word about what I'm trying to do here, which is simply putting together a show that details and shows how we really are living in the end times. We are seeing it. We were just going through the dates a little bit ago. I'm hoping that that's not right, but unfortunately it's looking more and more like it is. So let me see what you guys are saying in chat here. If you follow Richie from Boston, I used to a little bit, he is reporting worries about Pebble Beach, Monterey, California, to be turned into a smart city soon, possibly hit by fires. He's seen enough to worry and report on it. Yeah, Richie's been pretty good on stuff like that in the past, so maybe something to pay attention to. Pebble Beach. So that would kind of fit in with the whole deal that happened in Los Angeles earlier, you know. So, yeah, more smart cities. That's all we need. Texas is now allowing the big 18-wheelers on Texas roadways with no drivers autonomous. Yes, we mentioned that exact story just last week. So I'm not sure if you were here, Miss Kathy, or not, but yes, we mentioned that article last week. And in fact, one of the video clips that I put out during the week. Where is it? Right here. Watch out. Autonomous self-driving semi-trucks driving down the road at full speed. Question mark. Exclamation point. Yeah. So that was one of the clips that I put out last week on Take It to the Lord in Prayer. End Times Dates on YouTube. And then I'm really pretty much just putting those clips on Twitter and YouTube. If you're looking for short clips, that's pretty much where they are. And then, let's see, we've got the Diamond Report on Rumble, of course, Diamond Disc on Rumble, and BitChute and Brighteon. And I was debating about what to call the show last week. And I'm not sure if it was something that people really understood what I was going for. I think it might have gone over most people's heads, unfortunately, but that's my life. It says Luigi's Gonna Walk it was the name of this particular show last week. And it was based on the articles that I read about him not being read his rights, and then doing a search on his, I don't know if his premises or what, but with no warrant. They did a search with no warrant, and they didn't read his rights. So you've got a setup here where it's looking like this case is probably going to get thrown out. Of course, he was the guy who shot that healthcare CEO, shot and killed him on film. I mean, it's on camera. But now there's a group of people that are making a literal musical comedy of Luigi. And of course, I came up with a graphic that's sort of detailing that. Let me see if we can get a better shot. This is the video from last week's show. Luigi Mangione, the musical comedy, Luigi's Gonna Walk. A night of laughter and intrigue. So yeah, that was the graphic I created for the show last week. So who knows what this week's show is going to be called? I'll have to figure that out tomorrow. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that. And I don't think most people even got it, but still had a decent amount of views, so that's good. It is out there. It's available if you guys want to check it out. But that's on Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon. And then, of course, Band. Miss Emily put the links for Band and Subscribestar and Substack in chat before she took off. And so thanks to her for doing that. And then, there's Band, and that's the fun group that we have, posting stuff in there, different things, articles and whatnot, stuff that you're looking at, stuff that I'm reporting as well. Sometimes I'll put stuff in there and not necessarily report on it on the show on Sunday nights. So it is available, though, if you guys want to join. It's totally free. Band.us, and then just put in /@ the Diamond Report. So that's where it is. Band.us. They don't censor people, and I do really like their platform. It seems pretty good. It's clean, easy to use, and the app is actually pretty good too. I know people that only use the app. I personally have the app but don't use it much. I tend to just use the website. You can log in and use the website just like you might on Facebook or something like that. But again, no censorship, which is amazing. So anyway, thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And time to wrap it up. We've got show next week on the 18th. It's going to be 10 p.m. on the 18th. That'll be the next Diamond Report Live. Look forward to seeing you guys again then. And we'll close with another short video, and hope you guys have a really blessed week. And please keep me in your prayers. Please keep the show in your prayers. If this show is supposed to try and reach more people, try and reach more people for the gospel, trying to present it in a way where people can understand we may really be living in the end times, and we need to get right with God. That's kind of what this whole show is about. So thanks again, you guys, for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, and hope you guys have a blessed week. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. Love you all. Talk to you again real soon. For unique perspectives in Christian truth and one-of-a-kind Bible studies, please visit our website, truthhuntershow.com. Help us get around big tech censorship on YouTube, Facebook, and others by subscribing to our website. You can do so by entering your email address right here and click subscribe. Another option is click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll get a pop-up where you can enter your email address here and click subscribe. To support the work of the Truth Hunters, simply scroll down the page and you'll see ways that you can contribute by PayPal, Patreon, and Venmo. Thank you very much.